Hello and welcome to the Raw podcast brought to you by the Sunderland Echo. And today we're going to be looking ahead to Sunderland's championship fixture against Hull City on Good Friday at the Stadium of Light. So to preview the match, joining myself, Joe Nicholson, we are joined by Ant Northgraves from the To Hull and Back podcast. Ant, how's things?
They're all right, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Looking forward to the Easter weekend. A couple of games for both sides.
Yeah, I mean, the way our recent results have been going, not too excited, but it's football, isn't it? So it's got to have a little excitement somehow.
Yeah, we'll come on to Hull's form and how they're kind of shaping up ahead of the game at the Stadium of Light on Friday. I've just been having a look at their recent results. It's 1 win in 9. They're 17th in the table. So how are they kind of shaping up? What's their form been like? I know there's been a couple of draws in there as well. How would you say they're kind of shaping up heading into the game?
We're a weird one, really, because you'd look, paper value, you look at the table and you look at recent results and you'd say, this is a team that somebody like Sunderland should be beating at this stage of the season. But since Rosini has taken over, I think we've only lost five games, I think it is, 5 or 6 games since November. And before he came in, we had the worst defence in the league under Shotter by far. We were conceding 2 or 3 every game and not scoring. And so he had a huge task on his hands to turn the defence around, and that's what he's done. He's made us a really hard team to beat. I think we've had the 5th best defence in the league since the World Cup break. We don't really concede many goals at all. It's just our Achilles heel all season has just been, that lack of cutting edge in the final third. So many games where we've either kept a clean sheet or only conceded 1, but we've just not scored the goals or put those chances away to turn those draws into wins. And that's ultimately led us to, mid-table consolidation as opposed to, an unlikely playoff chase. It's been a frustrating season, and I can imagine Rosini is ragging his hair out because we've had so many injuries to key players all season. I mean, a lot of teams have this year. It's been really weird. And it's one of those seasons we'll look back on and think, what could we have done if we'd have had every player available to us every game? And hopefully we have the vast majority back next season, a better injury record, and see what this team's capable of.
Obviously, when Rossinia came in, it was the start of November, wasn't it? I think they were maybe about a point above the relegation zone, and he's obviously taken Hull kind of away from that. I think they're 9 points clear and about 13 off the playoffs. So how would you kind of assess the job that he's done, and what do kind of Hull fans make of his appointment and what he's done there since he's come in?
Yeah, he was a really popular appointment to start off with. Obviously, he has history with the club in terms of being a player. He's got family ties to the area and things like that. He does love the club. So on that sentimental value, he already had, the fans backing. He's a very new manager, very young, has a clear way of playing, an identity he wants to impose as his playing style as a manager. He's very well-spoken, very honest. He comes after games and we may have drawn 1-1 and he's it might be a solid point away from home, against a good side like Coventry, for example, and he'll come away disappointed we didn't take 3 points away and that we went better in certain aspects of our game. And that's what you want to hear as a fan. You want to hear that they're striving for better and looking for ways to turn, results into a more positive manner. He made some good signings in January. We've got Aaron Connolly on loan, Malcolm Ebiue, Caldalo. We've got, Premier League players that we hoped would help us to try and push into that top half of the table and a bit of a playoff push. And it looked at one point like that was going to be the case. Then, like I said, injuries that we picked up here and there. I mean, I don't think we have any recognised strikers available for the Sunderland game, which pretty much tells you our entire story this season. And it kind of just fell away from us. Our good run of form came to an end. We couldn't score, and the playoffs just became a bit too far away. And it's a shame because the season's kind of just fizzing out now into a bit of a dead end. The players already seem like they're on the beach sometimes, and what looked like it could have been an unlikely top 6 chase at one point is now just turned into a bit of obscurity in the middle of the table. And you're thinking, it's more optimism for next season than at the minute. I think everyone still backs Rosini. We still like the way he plays. He wants us to play out from the back, possession-based, very organised, methodical, and he likes giving young players a chance. And we're seeing some players really flourish in his system. So, hopefully next season, like we say, a few good signings, a good pre-season to get their fitness levels up so they can press high like he wants them to. And and really impose this, possession-based style he wants to play on. Because I don't think he really has the players to do it at the minute. He inherited somebody else's squad. So overall, he's done a really good job considering, we signed 17, 18 players in summer and none of them were his signings, obviously. So he's done really well given the circumstances and we're very optimistic for next season.
Mm-hmm. You talk about his style of play there, how he wants them to play out from the back and press high up the pitch. But we've seen at Sunderland this season, some teams will come and, well, particularly we saw it in last season in League One, where teams will try and waste time and frustrate the crowd. And so how do you think Hull will approach the game on Friday? How do you think they will set up and kind of will he try and implement that style of play with pressing high and trying to play out from the back?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Rosinia, our owner's been very well spoken in terms he wants the fans to be excited. He wants us to come to games and be entertained. And obviously lately there's not been many goals in the games and that's not happening. And you can see that Rosinia is trying to figure out a way to get, these goals and to finish the season with a bit of a flurry. But with the injuries preventing, our, especially in the attacking sense, it's really hard for him to do so and find that way to do it. But I think, Burnley had a similar thing where, they've gone into most games where teams tend to sit back and try and just absorb the pressure and hit them on the break. And they came here and a lot of the fans were, very respectful towards how we did. We tried to play them at their own game. We tried to go toe-to-toe with them. And obviously we lost 3-1. But in terms of the game, we actually played really well. And if we'd have put our chances away, it'd have been a different result. I don't think he will go there. We've got nothing to play for, so I can't see why he would go there and sit back. We haven't done it. I can't remember the last time we just, went somewhere and parked the bus and tried to defend and win a point because it's pointless at the minute. There's we're not trying to grind out points to get to safety. We're unlikely to go down. I know we're only 9 points from the bottom three, but realistically, like I said, we've only lost 5 times since November, so it means us losing pretty much, 4 or 5 games on the bounce, and the teams below us also picking up points on a regular basis to really bring us back into it. And I think that's unlikely. So I'd like him to try and, take the shackles off the players, maybe take it to Sunderland. Like we say, you're missing a couple of key players too. So it might be a good chance for us to, break this goal scoring hoodoo that we've currently got on us because we can't seem to score more than 1 goal. I can't actually remember the last time we scored more than 1 goal. So he'll be desperate to turn that around. So I can imagine it being a pretty entertaining game because, Sunderland are going to try and take it to us too. So hopefully we'll get a nice end-to-end game. But with the defensive records, I think maybe a lot of the chances might go over the bar.
Yeah, it's definitely a game that Sunderland probably need to win if they're going to mount a late kind of push for the playoffs. So it looks like both sides will be looking to win it. But you mentioned Hull's lack of goals and their lack of strikers as well. Just reading Liam Rosinia's comments as well this week. Oscar Estepinian and Aaron Connolly both set to miss the game. Estepinian, Hull's top scorer, was 13 this season. So just how big a loss will those two be and how will they set up with no strikers kind of formation-wise?
Oh, huge miss. I mean, we played Rotherham on the weekend in front of the biggest league crowd we've had since the Premier League days. And we had no recognised striker in the squad. Even our youth striker that we normally would have turned to was also injured. So we played with a front three basically of wingers. We used Ryan Longman through the middle, who can play up front, but he's not there. He's not a natural striker. We created that many chances against Rotherham and just couldn't put any of them away. And you're thinking, if we'd have had a Tete on the pitch or an Oscar, that vast majority of these chances probably would have ended up in the back of the net, and we'd be talking about a 4-5-0 win. But as it is, we haven't got them available, and we like we say, we've got, because these wingers that we are playing, Aliar is a young Iranian kid. He's really exciting, really direct. It's just question marks on his end product at the minute, but he will get there. Longman again, frustrating. He was a very good player for his last season, kind of fizzed out towards the end and hasn't really reached those heights again this season. So he's been frustrating. And Ebuwe is an 18-year-old on loan from Palace who's, last few games has been very good, but he's again hasn't scored yet since coming to us in January. So there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of promise there. It's just putting the actual ball in the back of the net, which we're struggling with, and I don't know how he's going to set up. We've got a couple of other youth strikers we could turn to, like Josh Hines. Whether or not he'd go to them and put them in the starting lineup, I'm doubtful. We might try and play a false 9 with a midfielder in there, maybe a Tufan or a Traore. and try and just maybe bring the wingers into sit the 9 deeper and let the wingers progress a bit more and see if we can get them in the box to score. But I think it's going to have to be a kind of thing where we have to try and rely on set pieces, but we've not been brilliant at them this season either. So basically on paper, it's looking like we're unlikely to score any goals anytime soon.
You mentioned a few of the kind of attacking players there, but who are the kind of other key players to watch out for? You've mentioned defensively that Rossinia's shored them up at the back and they look a much better kind of defensive unit.
Yeah, Sean McLaughlin is a player that under Shota Arveladze didn't really get a look in, and he was one of our best players last season in a defensive sense, and it was really bizarre that we didn't play him, especially considering we played Figueiredo, who was just mistake ridden, and we were conceding so many goals with that system. So since his introduction to the team, him and Alfie Jones have made a really good partnership at the back. We did have Cyrus Christie in right back, and we've been playing Jacob Greaves, who's actually naturally a centre half in left back, and he's been doing okay in that role as well. So, but Christie's injured, so we've been playing Louis Coyle there, who's been very good since coming into the squad. There's been a lot of question marks over whether or not he'll be up to the standard that we need in this current Rosinia team, but he's really stepped up to the mark lately and he's got a good delivery on him. So that back four, no matter who seems to play, has become a very cohesive unit. But definitely McLaughlin and Jones at the minute are the superb pairing at the minute. They just tend to keep most players quiet at the minute. We have got a bit of a wild card in the sense of Adama Traore, obviously not the pacey wolf winger, is Malian midfielder. We signed him in summer, but he got a long-term injury as soon as he signed him. He only made his debut a few weeks ago. But he's a player that once cost AS Monaco in the French league 15 million euros, and he's got Champions League experience. He's just had a career that's been blighted by injury, and he's not really hit the heights that I think he probably could have done. But when he's been on the pitch, last few games especially, he's been very good. He likes to drop into that space in front of the opposition back four. He's got a very keen eye for a pass in behind to get somebody in on goal. He should have probably scored against Rotherham, but he was brought down, which led to a red card. So he's a player that I think a lot of teams won't have done any homework on because they won't have seen him play. So he's a bit of our wild card in that sense that, he's very creative and looks like he could be a dangerous player, especially to build the team around next season. In Oscar's absence, we've got Ozan Tufan, also a midfielder who, he's on 5 goals and he's not actually started many games this season. So he can be a goal threat. He likes to a late run into the box and he's got an eye for a long range of 2. So there is players in there that have got attacking promise. Like I say, it's just whether or not on the day they've got that end product ahead of them. Like we say, we've got a lot of youth in that front line, and it shows sometimes with that little bit of experience, or maybe letting the pressure get to them at times. So, but as a team, we're very organised. So I obviously shout out to the full team. But like I say, wild card wise, definitely Adama Traore to look out for. Ebiwe has been very good lately too on the wing, young lad on loan from Palace, and our 2 centre backs.
Yeah, Tufan, you mentioned, obviously got that goal against Sunderland back in December when the sides last met. Ross Stewart got the opener, and then Tufan equalised with about 8 minutes to go, wasn't it? But have you seen much of Sunderland this season, apart from that game at Hull earlier in the season?
I've not lately. I remember watching them a few times on telly before our game, but I haven't actually seen much of them lately. But I have heard bits and bats between. Obviously, I know that Ellis Sims was recalled, and obviously Ross Stewart's been injured, so you've been struggling to find, similar to us, somebody to put the ball in the back of the net on a regular basis. I know that Clark and Roberts on their day can be unplayable, but also, sometimes can go missing. That's just the kind of players they are. We all got those kind of flair players. You've got real workhorses in there like Luke O'Neill, and you've got, future players like Dan Neil, who are really rare, and I think will be a Premier League player, whether that be with Sunderland in a couple of years or not. So there is a good squad there, and I think you've landed really well with getting Mowbray in as a manager too. I think he's very good at getting the best out of the squad of players he's got, and especially with giving youth a chance and things like that. So I think Sunderland will probably look back at, similar to us this season, and think of it as a year of what if. If we'd have had a full squad of players, what could you have done? Could it have been a top 6? Could you have been in the fight for the top 6? Right in it till the end of the season, kind of thing, and probably look back on it with frustration, especially considering you in League One last season. It would have been very good to have done back to back, obviously with the turmoil of Neil leaving all suddenly before the season started, kind of thing. But again, I think it's a season where Sunderland fans can look back and think, there's a lot of promise in this squad, and next season, hopefully, you've got that solid base to build on to really give that playoff position a push.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think it's definitely a case of what could have been, but it's still overall been a very good season for Sunderland. And looking back to that whole game back in December, it was one of them times where there was a ball over the top. Ross Stewart ran onto it and managed to score, and that's what they've been lacking in recent weeks and months with him being out since January. And we usually just finish by just asking our guests for a quick score prediction. How do you think the game is going to go on Good Friday between Sunderland and Hull at the Stadium of Light?
On paper, it's a 0-0. But I do think there's a couple of goals in this game. I'm going to say 1-1. I think is a safe bet.
Mm-hmm. We're live on Sky as well. Remember, it's a 5:30 kickoff as well, so the Sky cameras will be hoping for a few goals. I think, as you said before, I think Hull will come here wanting to win the game with nothing to lose. Really, looks like they're safe from relegation now. Sunderland really, as we said, had to win to kind of keep their playoff hopes alive. So I think Sunderland might nick a 2-0 win, but as you said, maybe not many goals considering Hull's recent performances, and as you said, they've shored them up at the back. So, and thanks a lot for joining us on the latest episode of the Raw podcast. If you like what we do here at the Sunderland Echo, you can subscribe to our podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts and leave us a review. And for all the latest SAFC news, you can head over to the SAFC section of the Sunderland Echo website to find the thoughts of Sunderland head coach Tony Mowbray, and we'll also have more build-up ahead of Friday's game at the Stadium of Light. So once again, thanks a lot for listening to the Raw podcast.